Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Stephen. We have Race here with me as well, and we also have Chad joining me. How is everybody today?
Doing well.
Good.
Good.
That's good. A lot of news. It's a bit of a slow news day, but we do have some very interesting bits of news to talk about today. The first topic that we have up is that we have upped our bid for Romeo Lavia over the course of the past couple of about 24 hours or so, 48 hours or so. We initially bid just under about 37 million. They're about 37 million pounds. And then on top of that, we then decided to up that now to about 42 million pounds with a £2.5 million add-on for bonuses and everything. So the first question I'll pose to yourself, Chad, well, not so much a question, just more of an opinion, really. Is this basically a done deal? Is he a Liverpool player? Is he basically just give him the shirt and buy him a ticket to Singapore?
100%. Number 45 has already been printed on a Liverpool shirt, So I do think this is a done deal. He wants to come. We want him to come. We need him to come. In fact, this is a done deal. He's on the next flight to Singapore, I'm sure.
I'd be one to agree with you there. Race, with the news of Lavia basically being all but a Liverpool player, and I don't want to jinx it, so knock on wood for that. With the departures of Henderson officially today and presumably Fabinho in the coming days, do you feel like we need more cover there, or are you happy with Lavia being our number 6 for the future? I'm happy with him being the number 6 for the future, but I would like a little bit more experience ahead of him, just to let him build into the role, because it's one thing playing for Southampton in the Premier League. It's a completely different kettle of fish when you're playing for Liverpool in the Premier League.
Mm-hmm. I certainly think that it's a little bit would be a little nerve-wracking if he was kind of the primary 6 and given the keys to the car there. It's like you said, playing for Southampton is one thing. Playing with Liverpool is completely different, especially with the ambition that we have this season. I will say that making his transition to us wouldn't be too daunting because he has such a better team around him. So, if he makes a mistake or two, we have other players that'll clean up for him.
Yeah.
And he'll certainly be, a valuable piece. But it always does take some time, or not always, but we have seen with new players in the past, new transfers coming, it takes time to adopt the Klopp system, especially in the midfield, and especially, playing the number 6 for us, which is a position that's, we're in dire need of, and will be very important on the field. It's, that part, you hope that he can hit the ground running. And, certainly if this deal gets done the next couple of days, he'll be in the training camp, he'll be in practice, as soon as possible to get ingrained, because the goal is if you bring it in right now, I mean, who else is going to be first on the team sheet, in that role in our first game? Bajcetic is, he's not even in the traveling squad right now. I don't think he'll be really fit enough to take on that role. You're not going to play. I don't think Trent's really going to be the number 6. That's kind of just in the preseason, because we don't have anyone there. So you're really buying him, right now in hopes of, and hopefully to plan to play him, game 1, and have some, level of success. Of course, no transfer is going to come in and fly unless you're, Salah. But it's going to certainly bring in another player would be good, to not put all the weight of the world on him. I've said this before. I've always wanted to bring in two players with Fabinho and Henderson, out the door, just to bring in more experience. And again, he's only 19, 20 years old, so he doesn't. One season in the Premier League, of course, was a really good one, but that will kind of hover over your head as well. Just thinking, hopefully that he'll hit the ground running.
No, yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd be much of the same mind that it does take somebody a little bit of time to come into it. And something that does have to be noted as well, it was announced earlier today, Ben Jacobs, I think, was the gentleman that announced it, that Chelsea have decided to put in a bit of a higher bid. They said that it was reported by him that they'll actually put in the 50 million flat out, but it was also still reported by Ben Jacobs that Lavia wants Liverpool. Personal terms have practically been agreed, so it's all but a done deal at this point. It's literally just down to the clubs and negotiating the fee. Chad, with regards to what Race was mentioning in relation to the likes of experience and letting them grow into the role, Do you think there's anybody in the team at the moment, the likes of a Curtis Jones, the likes of a Thiago, that he can kind of play in that CDM role, although it's not the kind of player that we want there? But with some of the experience that we still have left, and it's fair to say with experience with quite young players and the likes of Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott that have played at a Premier League level for quite a long while, do you think that Lavia coming in can be an understudy for somebody that's only a couple of years older than him, like a Curtis Jones, who's played that position? Or do you think we need somebody that's a little bit more experienced, the likes of somebody that will be mid to late 20s, that is a bit more tried and proven at that particular job and a specialist in a CDM?
Yeah, we saw Curtis Jones in the Euros playing in that pivot role with Gomez, and he looked very comfortable on the ball, and I feel like, well, actually at the moment he is the longest serving midfielder for Liverpool now that Henderson's gone. But yeah, I do think that if we bring in Lavia, we have experience. I mean, Thiago is still there, hopefully, if he still stays during the course of the summer. He has that experience, so he'll be able to be in Lavia's ear, calm him down and allow him to progress and get comfortable in the position. I do feel like we also do need to get a natural six, a specialist in that position, someone that's, like you said, has the miles, has the experience to play in that position. We also have Bajcetic, who's just coming back from injury. We all know when you come back from a long-term injury or a mid-term injury like Bajcetic, it's going to take some time to get the ball rolling. So I wouldn't mind us playing Jones in the pivot and having Trent come into that inverted role. At least we'll have some kind of understanding within our midfield, so we can gel and grow. But yeah, we do need a specialist to come in, even if it is a later year kind of play in these 28, 27 kind of guy that just comes in and helps us soften the blow of losing two very important guys in our midfield, especially at the six. But I do see that if Lavia comes in, I would see Klopp putting Bajcetic above him first, because Bajcetic he had a run in that first team, and he's been around the guys, and he knows the position of how to play in a Liverpool team. And I feel like he will start if it only is Lavia and him, he will start next to Trent as an inverted role. And then Lavia will start progressing, as we saw with Fabinho. Fabinho, it took him a couple of games before he can start, solidify himself inside that six role. So I feel like when Lavia does come, it'll be more of we'll put you around more senior guys that know the system, guys that know how to play for a Liverpool team, and then you will start to grow. And I do see maybe in December, November, he starts taking on that role more. Granted that Bajcetic is obviously not it's underperforming in that, which I doubt as well. But yeah, a senior member would be nice. It'll be more comfortable because, again, Thiago is the only senior member in the midfield at the moment. And for me, that's a worry. I feel like we need to add a little bit more experience in that midfield, just so that the guys around them, the Curtis Jones, the Harvey Elliott, the Lavia, the Bajcetic, can be more comfortable in that position. And I hope Liverpool goes in and gets someone more experience. Even if we go in and get a player like Decore from Crystal Palace. Yes, he has a little bit more years on. Lavia is not a lot more, but he has a little bit more years on Lavia. I see him also needing guidance as well, and needing experience. Even if we do bring in him as well, or with Lavia, either or, they both need. We need to have a little bit more experience in that midfield, just to ease the team, ease the players around them, and allow them to play their game.
No, I definitely agree with you there. I think it's all fine and well to sign Lavia. It's great. It's a fantastic signing. It's one for the future. But with what we're losing as well in regards to experience, I know we do harp on about being too loyal to certain players and everything like that, and we ourselves are guilty of it, while we accuse the likes of Klopp being a bit guilty of being stubborn about it as well. But I do think that there's a lot to be said for having a calm port in a storm in that, especially that isolated CDM role, which is one of the hardest roles to play in football, as Helier said. I believe this is it. The DM is his role is probably one of the toughest positions on the pitch, and I'd agree with Helio there in that aspect. If you think about it, you are the second last line of defense, and you're tasked with covering so much space, recovering balls, tackling, and then allowing the team to set up its offense, and then and you'd need to be able to hold the ball, hold off attackers, and be very counter press and counter attack resistant. And it's a role that's quite a thankless job, I feel. But something that I don't think an awful lot of people have copped and understood with Fabinho is the lack of with losing him, we technically lose depth at two positions because he could cover as a centre back as well. Race, in relation to that, with him covering at centre back, do you think now with the likes of Fabinho and Henderson, Fabinho more than likely, obviously Henderson has been confirmed today, with kinds of players with somebody that
I think, Steven, you cut out there a little bit. Might have some technical difficulties there, I think. You hear me, Chad?
But yeah, like Steven was trying to allude to. Yeah, I can still hear you, Race. Can you hear me?
Okay. I think it's something on Steven's end.
Sorry,
I think he was asking me.
I don't know if I.
Oh, I think you're back now.
Am I back?
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Perfect. Apologies about that. Technical issues on my side. My Wi-Fi has been acting up all day. What I was asking is with the lack of depth that we now have. Yeah, Steven's broken, as Jen just said there. Just died. seeing that we were having Lavia and just everything cut out, unfortunately. But no. So to follow on from my question, what I was asking is with the fact that Fabinho could also cover as centre back, do you think that now pushes us to have to sign, even if it is a younger player? I know we signed a very young centre back from Wolves for £800,000, but with the likes of him being able to cover at centre back, do we need an additional player now, even if it is a young guy, to come in as an understudy? Or do you think with the players that we have at the moment and possible signings that could come in the next couple of weeks, do you think we'd be okay? Or does this add another need on top of the need for a centre back already? Does this add another need for like an understudy kind of a thing?
I don't think Fabinho leaving changes our situation with center backs because I remember, of course, during the COVID season, he filled in at center back just because everyone was hurt. I can't remember too much of him, in a center back role or having to fill in often. So I'm not sure how much of a plan it was for him to, like, if he was still in the team, they were gonna see him as a center back option. So for me, I always thought the plan, or at least what I was thinking is, any move for a center back would be more facilitated in January, because I think obviously the midfield, I think, is more of a priority right now. That number 6, then bringing in a center back is where, of course, we would like to bring in a center back, but realistically, signing multiple players, this isn't seems like a very solid thing to do right now that we would do. But I think it's kind of a wait and see with specifically Gomez and Matip, because of course Matip's out of contract next summer, and Gomez has been very poor the last couple seasons, and he's kind of, we need to see, he kind of needs to prove himself this season. So I could see them moving in January, when they see if they're performing poorly throughout this first portion of the season, and then in January say, okay, we need to bring in our next guy, because we've seen in January they've bought players when they've seen a need, and they've made those moves happen. So I'm not sure that Fabinho leaving necessarily changes our philosophy on specifically the center backs. Again, I said before, if you bring in just Lavia, of course we'd like to see another midfielder come in and not just have all the burden on Lavia to perform. Because again, our depth at that position, the number 6, would be just Lavia, by Chadish, maybe Thiago, but of course his fitness you can never count on that at this stage of his career, and there's just really not many options.
No, it's kind of, we're caught between a little bit of a rock and a hard place in relation to our situation at the moment. And as Paul said here, I'll re-show it again, with Matip so slow, Kanate being injury prone, we do need some cover. And obviously with Virgil van Dijk, it's not a bad thing to admit that he's getting older. It happens to the best of us. Father Time is undefeated, unfortunately. Tom Brady gave it a good go, but eventually it got him too. I do think that it's about time that we started looking at getting that centre back in now and not waiting like we did with the midfield and leaving us in such a vulnerable situation that we need to go and spend, and that teams know they can kind of gouge us a little bit with price because they know we're desperate and we don't have many other options. But I do think that we definitely do need to sign it. I think between now and next summer we need another 2 centre backs and another 2 midfielders with Fabinho and Henderson gone. So we're back to where we were at the start, unfortunately, in needing 4 players. We needed 4 players at the start of the window. Now we've lost a couple, and we still need 4. So we were taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back, unfortunately. But first thing I'd like to say before we move on to the next topic is there's nearly 100 people in here. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, thank you so much. But the reason we want you to like and subscribe, first of all, because it helps the channel fantastically. But our lovely, lovely friend Damo, who is the most staunch anti-FSG person you would ever meet in your life, is once we hit 10,000 subscribers before the season starts, that he is going to recite his beautifully crafted Shakespearean love poem to FSG and all of their accompanying partners, and I for one would pay good money to see that, so I cannot wait. So please, as Jen said, smash the likes, get subscribed. We're here every day from 7:30 in the evening. Sometimes we might be a little bit sooner, sometimes we might be a little bit later, but always around the 7:30 mark is when we're here, and we can't wait to be back again tomorrow for the same thing. So moving on, that we've mentioned him a good few times so far. Jordan Henderson, 12 years, took over the captain from Steven Gerrard, took over an awful lot of a leadership role with the club, was a great servant for 12 years. Some would feel that he should have gone sooner. Some would feel that he served his time well. With regards to him as a player, my own personal opinion on him is that he's the most successful captain when you look at it from a Liverpool point of view, with how much he's won. He's won everything that you need to win in 12 years, and he was a great leader and one of probably the last few real captains in the Premier League. With that being said, question that I'll pose to both yourself and Race, Chad, and I'll pose it in the chat as well, is can you give me your fondest memory of Henderson ever since he joined us about 12 years ago from was it Southampton, I believe, or Sunderland he joined us from? One of the two. Can't remember. It's been that long ago. Sunderland. I was thinking that. It's one of the 2 S's. That my memory's gone. Ever since obviously the Wi-Fi's gone, my memory's gone. But yeah, Chad, what do you think? I'll ask people to put it in the chat as well, of your fondest memory of Jordan Henderson in his time at Liverpool. I'll relay to you first, Chad.
My fondest memory of, there's so many actually. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Henderson. I'm one of the very few that actually believe that this guy actually had a lot of impact into our club. My fondest memory will either be the Tottenham game in the 2021 season, where he had to play centre back with Fabinho, and he made this amazing tackle. And then it just pumped up the whole crowd. And not the crowd, because there's no crowd, obviously, but pumped up the whole team, that we went on to push on and went on to win. Again, the Man City goal in 2015-16, that bender, my fondest memory is against Ajax last season. Not last season, the season before, when we were going for the quadruple. He gets the ball coming over his shoulder, puts it on his back, puts it in the lane for him to run, then puts it outside the boot, assist to Salah. It's something that you never expect from Henderson. The best moments from Henderson is those unexpected moments. Those again the assist against Man City, the 5-0 assist outside of the boot. You didn't expect that from Henderson, but he just pulled it out of nowhere, and it landed straight into Salah's foot, and he went on to score his hat-trick goal. So for me, it was the moments that Henderson surprised us. The moments that we went, oh, he can actually do that. I mean, you know what I mean? Those are the moments for me that I find fondest for me when it comes to remembering about Henderson. Again, the Barcelona game, the comeback at Anfield, my word, the man ran himself to the ground, picking up all the loose pieces, covering for Milner when he had to go into the left back position. There were so many unseen moments of Henderson's career at Liverpool that he doesn't get appreciation for. And for me, uh, I can't say much about the guy. As you guys know, I consider him very highly when it comes to the captains of Liverpool and the leadership that he had and the leadership qualities that he has and possessed. It wasn't just about him talking; it was about his presence. I mean, again, another memory of the Bournemouth. Sorry, I'm taking all the memories, but the Bournemouth game last season, when Salah missed the penalty on the side, our midfield for the first half was shambles, and we didn't win the game. But the way when he came on in the second half, the control he had, the presence, and the ability to calm everyone in that midfield. I remember we had Bajcetic and Milner came on with Hendo. Bajcetic just calmed down and played the game properly, and we had more chances, and we were more in the game. And for me, that's something that, there's not a lot of players that can do that. They can come into a team where he's not even in the top 5 in terms of talent, but come into the team and still have that presence to mold these guys that are way above him in terms of talent and bring them all together, make sure that we can still achieve our goals and push them and hold the standard high. So for me, it was, and yeah, he was just a fantastic guy, and I wish him well. I think it was the right time for him to go. He's 33. His contract running down. I don't think Liverpool are giving him a new contract. So for me, it's the only problem I have is the way he left. I wish he could have had his final moment at Anfield, like players like Lavia and Milner and Fabinho last season had. So not Fabinho, sorry, Firmino last season. But hopefully Liverpool can do something for him. Maybe the first game of the season at home. They bring Hendo back and he can have his moment in the sun, or maybe the last season of the last home game of the season. But yeah, he was a fantastic guy, and I wish him well.
No, I'd agree with a lot of them. A lot of them are quite fond memories of him. And my own personal two. One of them was said here by Paul. This one just sits perfectly in my mind. The goal against Man United outside of the foot pass, absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And I won't lie, if that was anybody else, if that was Kevin De Bruyne, or if that was Bruno Fernandes, or if it was somebody, if it was like Son or Harry Kane or somebody that made that pass done, it would have been on every ounce of social media, left and right, and it would be talked about for weeks.
100%.
But because it was Henderson, it wasn't 100%. Really talked about. Another one that's actually quite a fond memory of mine, and I don't know if many people remember this. I found it quite funny at the time. When Liverpool were playing Chelsea, and he was quite a young player at the time, and Diego Costa was playing, and obviously we all know Diego Costa to be somewhat of
the square
irritant. Chad, the square up between the two of them and the stare down. I thought that was quite funny, but it was quite telling of the mentality that he had and everything. That he did just he played his heart out. I will give you that. I think personally he was here a little bit too long. I don't believe the latest contract that he got prior to him leaving was the right move at the time. But I can't fault him as a captain in the time that he was here. He was a great servant to the club, and I wish him nothing but the best over in Saudi Arabia, getting paid absolutely silly amounts of money at the age that he's at. I think it's a no-brainer. But his only smear that I would have is the manner in which he's leaving and the bit of drama that was around that, and obviously the drama around his previous contract that was signed a couple of years ago. Outside of that, I don't necessarily have any bad things to say about him as a player or as a captain. With yourself, Race, is there any particular memory that you have that would stick out? Or is there any particular game that comes to mind? As Chad said, the Barcelona game where we came back from 3-0 down from the first leg, or as Paul said in the chat, the outside of the boot pass to Salah for his third goal for the hat-trick against Man United in that 5-0 victory. Is there anything in particular that stands out in your mind, or is it just a haze of good things or a haze of bad things?
I'll preface preface this by saying I wasn't a Liverpool fan necessarily for the full tenure that Henderson's been here. I'm American. I just wasn't into soccer at the time. So I came in at like 2014. So I'll just say that my connection with Henderson as a fan just isn't as strong as maybe some other people. I know that he obviously being a leader and he took over the captaincy from Gerrard. And so he's had a tremendous, in terms of being a leader, you can't overlook that. I would say that the Barcelona game is one that kind of sticks out just because of how much, obviously, that game meant to us, the incredible comeback, Champions League semifinal, got us to the final. And I just remember at the end of the game, Henderson just lying down, basically crying, exhausted, all it was. You could see how emotional he was and how much that meant to him. For whatever we talk about him on the field, you can never question his heart. And how much it meant to him to be a leader of this team, because he knows. Yeah. I'm sure he knows too. He wasn't always. It was really never. I mean, the best player on the field. He knew that he was out of his depths when he looks to the right of him. He's got Salah there. He's got Trent behind him. Virgil. He's like, wow, I'm the leader of this team, and he did a great job in recognizing that, and and being a good servant to the club for sure. I would think, and I agree with you, Steven. He kind of extended his stay with us a little too long. I think if he wasn't the captain, we would be a player to look to sell. I don't think he would have stuck around as long as he did, but because he was the leader and a captain, you can certainly see why he stuck around. I mean, we tried to kind of diminish his role in midfield by signing more players. We had, Oxlade-Chamberlain would come in and he just couldn't stick because of injuries, and Naby Keita as well. So, we tried to diminish his role. It's just so happened that we just didn't get any luck with that. And we finally had that happen this summer with bringing in new players in Henderson. Obviously everything just kind of fell together for his move to leave. So, this is probably one of the last few times that we talk about Henderson, because he's riding off to the sunset. He's going to Al Ettifaq and basically disappearing from the spotlight, because let's be real, no one's really going to watch that league or pay attention. We'll see a clip here and there, if he scores a goal, or he has, he talks about his time at Liverpool. Of course, Gerrard over there, those two with their connections. We just won't really hear from him anymore until he officially hangs him up and retires fully. So, I know we know how poor Henderson has been, especially this past year, and how much we wanted him to not have a role on the field. But we can't overlook that he was, in terms of team success, he was our captain and our leader. And I don't think that should necessarily be overlooked. So I know that we keep talking about Henderson these last couple of weeks and reminiscing a little bit, but I think now we're kind of ready to close that chapter, close that book, and get a new one. And of course, we've talked about who the next captain will be and all of that. So Henderson, for me, yeah, there's a lot of bits and pieces there. Again, as a captain, not stuff you always necessarily see. Again, you'll never always see that, but certainly we wish him well. Thank you for your service and all that. Certainly wish for a better sending off. I would, like I said, we should have, and now that's a move you kind of announced at the end of the season so that you're able to have that final game, because, I don't think that, you're in a position to bring him back for a game and honor him and all that. That's just going to happen at the end of his career totally. So that'll be down the road. At some point, he'll get his flowers again, certainly, to be back on Anfield and give that sort of presentation. So, well, thanks for the memories, but we're moving on.
No, I'd agree with you on that. And something that you said kind of stuck with me a little bit, that you could never question his heart, and he always ran his heart lungs out while on the pitch. Something I believe it was Kevin Durant that said it, and probably others as well, that hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. And I think that's probably the best iteration of what Henderson was, just pure and adulterated stubbornness and hard work. While obviously he wasn't everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. You're allowed that opinion and everything. You can't deny the fact that he was a very good leader for us. He was what we needed at the time, and was a great talisman for the club up until now that he's left. But as we said, now he's gone. He's going to Saudi Arabia to earn silly amounts of money and have generational wealth for his family, and I wish him nothing but the best. Just to make you all aware again, please do like and subscribe. We've just about 80 people in here again, so the more likes, the more traffic this channel gets, the more subscribers, the better we can make the content for you, and that's what we want to do. We want to make good content for you. Speaking of Henderson leaving, the other topic of his compatriot in the midfield is Fabinho. And he had the guys have just left for Singapore. They left earlier on today, and Fabinho was not one of the ones that was traveling. So with that being said, this seems like it's all but over and all but done. With Fabinho going, something that I read in relation to our salary with our outgoings after Henderson and with the possibility of Fabinho leaving, that saves us £47.58 million per year, which works out at about £950,000 a week in salaries. Now, this isn't just Fabinho and Henderson. This is a couple of other guys as well on top of it. The likes of Ox, the likes of Keita, the likes of everybody like that too that's left. Works out at about just under £48 million a year. That in itself is the Lavia fee. That's your Lavia fee paid for.
Yeah.
With that being done, with the incomes coming in from the likes of Henderson, the likes of Fabinho with his proposed 40 million, along with the savings, that works out at just about £99 million. Now, a question I'm going to pose to both yourself and Race Chad is that with Chelsea kind of looking that like they're bottling the Kaisero deal because they've just had another 80 million bid rejected by them, could you see it as a total possibility that Liverpool could have a little bit of a cheeky transfer steal and cause an awful lot of drama in the transfer market?
Look, Liverpool identity has always been to be a working man's club. You know, we've always structured our deals when it comes to players to make sure that we don't overpay players. So we always keep our salary structure the way it should be. And I feel like that's coming into advantage now because, as you said, with the money that we're saving with these two guys going, we can fund the Lavia deal and we can still maybe possibly get another couple of guys coming in. With regards to the Kaisero deal, I would love it to come. I would love Kaisero to come in because I feel like that's an all-round talent that we can have at the sixth. His ability to progress the ball, ability to stop the ball, his tackling ability, his defensive ability. He would be a very great signing for us, a very needed signing for us. I mean, that would be a perfect replacement for Fabinho. Do I see us cashing out on him? I don't think so. I don't think that. I feel like Jurgen and the staff at Liverpool have their plans. I feel like they've already priced themselves out of the Kaisero deal. I think Kaisero is a little bit too much for us, even though we have the money for him. Race mentioned this earlier before the stream about we're not signing another 80 million. We're not going to spend another 80 million in two transfer windows. So it's a hope. It's a possibility. Everything is a possibility, and there is a hope there. But for me, I feel like we could go out and maybe spend it on a more senior member in terms of experience and get him coming in and then groom Lavia and Bajcetic so that maybe next season or maybe beginning of November, December time, those guys are now comfortable in the position and they can press on and start playing and start becoming the sixers that we need them to be. But yeah, no, it's a possibility. Maybe McAllister makes a phone call and who knows, But yeah, I don't see that 80 million coming out of our paycheck.
No, I think it's a bit unrealistic myself, and it's sad to say, but then again, we didn't think Szoboszlai was coming, and we didn't think that Szoboszlai was at all a target at all. Liverpool seem to be the kind of team, and always have been, that we're very quiet about our business. We're not loud, we're not outlandish and saying, oh, we're going to get X, Y, Z and everybody like that. It's a club that not a lot of leaks come out of. So any of the information that does come out is usually fairly sound because so little comes out of the club. But yeah, I think it's a little bit unrealistic. I would like us to take those savings of about just under 100 million and reinvest it like we have, rather than what we did rather than all of us wanting Jude Bellingham for the 100-odd million that we all knew he was, other than FSG knew he was going to be £100 million. But I rather what we did with that money in buying McAllister and Szoboszlai, and now possibly for the same for the £120 million that it would have cost, we're probably going to get 3 new midfielders, all of which could grow into world-class talents. So I would much rather have spent the money that way, and I would rather have spent this incoming 100 million in savings from both salary and salary and funding from other clubs for purchases. I would much rather us go and buy maybe 2 or 3 players, maybe two solid players and a young senior and a young player to mold in behind and sit as like an understudy. Race, do you think there's anywhere in particular on the squad that could use some shoring up and reinforcement outside of the defensive midfielder role? Is there any other position that you would like us to get a little bit more depth at, such as like centre back, left back, right back, goalkeeper if Caoimhín Kelleher decides to leave? Or is centre mid and centre back our only weaknesses for depth at the moment?
Yeah, center back would just be my main spot, I think. I didn't get a chance to mention this in a stream I did earlier, but our attack right now is so deep and so it's as strong as it's been in a while. You got Gakpo, Nunez, Salah, Jota, and Diaz, and then it's just that's obviously the strength of our team right now. And of course, we brought in the 2 midfielders. I don't think there's any other glaring weaknesses, like you said, with Kelleher. If he decides to leave, that's a position, because we don't want Adrian playing any games for us. But again, that's an old confusing subject there, why we gave him an extension. But I feel like if Kelleher would have, if we were going to sell him or if he wanted to leave, that kind of would have been facilitated already. So for that not to happen right now gives me the feeling that he's going to stick around. And again, with the Europa League this year, I think that's going to be his competition, or at least that's the route I would go with him. I would tell him, like, hey, you're going to have the Europa League for us. So it's really only the CDM and the center back position. If we're able to get this money, or have this money here and be able to invest it in the glaring weak, some position we need to fill, because with we've got Simicast as a backup left back right now. Right back, I'm sure we might talk about it a little bit with Connor Bradley not being in the squad for Singapore, and he may be getting loaned out. Of course, Calvin Ramsey's already loaned out for this season, so that would be maybe another position. But yeah, it's really just bringing in a center back and reinforcing that CDM spot.
No, I would be partial to agree with you there in relation to that, with the likes of I think centre back with Konate being as injury prone as he is. And I say injury prone, it's not that bad, but when it's more so, it's not a worry more so about Konate, it's a worry about who's behind him in the likes of Matip and Gomez. And we've seen in the last game, Matip just seemed completely disinterested. And that was quite shocking for a player that used to be a fairly standard appearance in our back four, that just did not seem bothered at all. And it was a preseason game. I get that. And we do see the likes of Jude Bellingham having a go at Lisandro Martinez for nearly breaking his ankle. There's levels to how much effort you put into a preseason game. I get that. You like that, but that's two. They're both different sides of the spectrum. Like, it's a preseason game. You got to gear up to it and actually put some effort in. But just Matip just didn't seem all that interested. And I don't want that as my centre back. And we've said enough about Joe Gomez to fill a book at this point. I don't think any more needs to be said with this. But I do think at least 2, if not 3, centre backs are needed over the next 3 windows, this one included, and next summer and January, along with 2 midfielders, not including if Lavia lands. If Lavia lands, I still think we need another midfielder in the defensive midfielder role. So as I said, we need 4 or 5 players, and we're taking one step forward and 2 steps back, as I mentioned previously. And it just seems we're back to square one, unfortunately. But positive thoughts. We don't want any negative thoughts here. We appreciate negative opinions are fine. We can debate them out and everything, but we don't want negative thoughts. We want to manifest some good. some good signings coming in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully before Singapore is out, and hopefully before the second game in Singapore, because they're playing on Sunday. I don't think there's going to be somebody signed and in Singapore in time for that, so that game is out of the question.
I will say one more thing on that with bringing in a new player. You know, you always want to be a little more proactive, and we have, you know, in signing, you know, depth pieces and stuff. You know, of course, we signed Luis Diaz in January, and I guess, you know, it was a little bit surprising, at least for me, when we got him. But I guess there was some indication that maybe Mane was going to leave or wasn't, you know, fully going to stay on. So that was a good sign that we made there. And same with kind of this Cody Gakpo one too, because Firmino was going to depart. But nothing. And so I don't want us to wait to get next summer when we know Matip's, he's not signing a new contract and he's not looking good. And Gomez, we're just done with him, because there's no guarantees in the transfer market. We just saw that with Bellingham. It seemed like, I mean, we were putting his name on the number 8 shirt already, and it just didn't happen. You know, it just, things change. You know, we had a really bad season, and I'm sure that changed, you know, that strategy that we had there. So there's no guarantees in who you can get and the price that you want. And of course, we're, you know, not looking to spend, you know, we're looking to manage our funds in that way. So I would agree that bringing in a center back, if we're able to right now, would be the move.
No, I would agree with you on that. I think there's plenty of places for depth, but that's definitely the back four is something that we need to look at purely because of. Sorry, go ahead, Chad. My bad.
I'd also say, sorry about that, Stephen. I also like to say maybe suggest maybe a centre back, because if you watch the two friendlies that we had, yes, Gomez is not it for us at the moment, but the way he can move into the centre backs when we play in that inverted role, it makes it more secure, because now you have a player that can play centre back, moving from right back into a centre back position. So maybe someone on the left side. If you go to by Leverkusen, he's I think it's Hiccup or Hippia, or he's from Ecuador, but he can play left back and right back. He's tall, he's fast, and if you do play the inverted role with Trent, I feel that he's more secure than having a Robertson, maybe, because he can play in that centre back role, and now we're not losing a position in a sense, you know what I mean? So if you do go out and look for a centre back, maybe look for a guy that can play on the wings as well, and then you can just fit him into that three at the back and be able to continue pressing forward with this formation if that's the way Klopp is going. But yeah, I completely agree with what Race is saying. And what you're saying, we do need another couple of guys coming in, and a centre-back it's not a dire situation at the moment, but it could become a dire situation if we don't act now.
I'd 100% agree with you. It's almost as if it's like the midfield all over again. It's getting to a dire situation, and we kind of want to nip it in the bud and get there before it hits a dire situation again. Because as we said, we waited 2-3 transfer windows, 4 or 5 transfer windows for Jude Bellingham in the hopes that he was going to come to what was assumed to be his boyhood club, and probably is. But unfortunately, those big bags of money at Real Madrid came knocking, and they just paid more money, unfortunately. Now, people can argue whether or not he wanted to be here or not. I don't think that's really up for debate. I think he did want to be here. Steven Gerrard was one of his favourite players. I think any one of us that would have been a Liverpool supporter as they were growing up and got the offer and heard Liverpool were calling, we would have been like, yes, I'll go there for free. That kind of a way. But he's not here with us anymore. We've moved on from him. We've gotten our players, and we're good to go going forward. So speaking of centre backs, funnily enough, and we're going to move on to our next topic here. Before we do so, we've nearly 100 people in the chat at the moment, and 100 people watching. Please, as Jen says, smash the like button and subscribe. We want to get to 10k before the start of the season. We've just hit over 100. We're on 101 at the moment. Thank you for watching, and we very much appreciate every single one of you and everybody's opinions that are coming in the chat. I have a couple of things saved in the chat. We'll get to them just before we end, hopefully. If not, I'll make sure that they are addressed at some point or another. The next topic that we have is Liverpool and Crystal Palace appear to be competing for a Torino centre-back, and it is Perr who is been rumoured to be going for about 40 million. I think it's pounds or euro. I'm not exactly sure. I know it's about the 40 million is the value. I know Transfer Market have him at about 25 million euro, but obviously everybody's getting overpriced in this transfer window. We can thank the likes of Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice, and others for inflating every sale that is going on at the moment. He's a 23-year-old, about 6'3", 6'4", big, strong centre back. With, as we mentioned earlier, the funds coming in from the outgoings and salary alone for the next year, along with the funds coming in from the Fabinho deal and the Henderson deal and others probably in the future going forward. Is this a player race that you think we would go for? Do you think he fits the mold at Liverpool? I looked into him a little bit just before the stream. He's a very solid defender. He doesn't wow you in any category. He's very much a jack of all trades kind of a centre back, but the saying is jack of all trades and a master of none, but it's better to be a jack of all than a master of none, if that makes sense. I think he'd be a very good signing. I think he's a big, strong physical presence, and I just kind of want to get your thoughts on him as a player. And do you think he'd be worth it? What do you think about it?
I can't say I know too much about him. Again, I just kind of looked at his profile recently to check him out. I think, being Dutch, obviously you have that connection with Van Dijk and Gakpo in the team already. And then having all your fellow countrymen beside you in defense would surely make any transition easy. It looks like a really good player. Again, I go back to when Klopp and the coaching staff and when they identify a player, I think they've earned our trust in coming in and being ability to develop them. They know what they're doing at this point. It would be a really nice piece. A younger player, 23 years old, so certainly helps out that depth issue that we would have. And hopefully would become a very important player for us. And I think it'd be a really good piece of business overall. The price tag is not too expensive. It's kind of in our ballpark, I would say. But again, who knows what our checklist is and what we're willing to spend and where our priorities land. So we'll see if anything amounts to this.
I'll ask yourself, Chad, the same question. I only had a very brief look at him on his profile and had a quick look into him myself. As I said, he's quite a good, solid defender. He doesn't wow you in any categories. He's young. He's 23. He's kind of the profile that we want. With him, Van Dijk and Konate in there as our three main centre backs, it would be quite a tall trio. They're all over 6'3", 6'4". They're big, strong physical presences. They are mobile and can move a bit. Do you think he's a good signing to come in as a backup to Virgil van Dijk and possible successor? Or do you think that there are better options for similar or less money on the market at the moment? As Vesa Flowers mentioned earlier, Inacio, who's a bit of a love child of mine, I would very much like him to come to Liverpool with his release clause at only €45 million. I'm nearly blue in the face for mentioning his name. I think he'd be fantastic. He's brilliant on the ball and brilliant in defence. But for yourself, Chad, is there anybody out there in the market that you've looked into yourself, or is there just the answer staring us straight in the face with either Inacio or Perr Schuurs? Which one do you think, or who, if anybody, do you think we should get?
Ignacio is a quality player, and like you said, with the release clause of around 40 million, that's like a no-brainer for me. He can play on the left side. He's left-footed. He can play with the ball. He's easy. He has composure to play with the ball at his feet, like how we play in our system. I haven't seen a lot of the Italian league, so I can't give my thoughts on him. I haven't seen him that much. I have a cousin that loves to watch the Italian league. For some reason, he thinks it's better than the Premier League. And he has said to me that this guy is someone to watch in the future, and he can develop to play in the pace that the Premier League plays. You must remember that the Italian league is much more slower. They're much more composed and more calculated when it comes to the way of their play. And the Premier League is fast-paced. You get guys in your face all the time. You need to be strong on the ball. You need to be strong on your feet. And he says this guy could be a potential a replacement for either Van Dijk or Matip. And I like I said, I'm going off of someone else's thoughts, but if I go back to the Portuguese league, I also like to bring out someone maybe like a Silva. He plays for Benfica, plays next to Otamendi. He's strong, he's solid. He looks like the Van Dijk. He looks like a younger Van Dijk, and he's been in the Portuguese side. He was at the World Cup with Portugal. I'm not going to say 100% I know if he played every game for Portugal, but I know he was involved with the so-called first team of Portugal. So for me, Ignacio or Silva is a good shout because Silva is still, I think it's 19 at the moment, 19 or 20. He's in that range, but he's already starting for a Benfica side that is competitive, very competitive, not only in Portugal, but as well as in Europe as well. So for you to stand out in the centre-back position at that young age, at a big club like Benfica and, start day in and day out, that's someone that we want, that someone that could be replaced, could replace Van Dijk in the future. The only problem is he is a right-sided centre back, so his left foot is not the greatest. He's not amazing with the ball at his feet, but those are the things that we can develop, and those are the things that we can strive for in the future. But for me, I would say Ignacio or Silva. I feel like that could be a shout. That could be a good shout for them. For us,
yeah, I'd be very inclined to agree with you on that. I know I keep saying that I'm agreeing with everybody, but I don't really seem to be sitting on the fence at all or disagreeing with anybody. To the Liverpool 12 man, no, the 40 million defender is not Marco Verratti. The 40 million defender is Perr from Torino, who Crystal Palace also have a bit of an interest in at the moment. And to be honest with you, I think Crystal Palace are going to outbid us for that. But that would be a serious back pairing between them of Doucouré and is it Doucouré that plays for Crystal Palace? I believe it is. Doucouré that plays for Crystal Palace. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody. I know I'm probably going to have egg on my face if I get that wrong. But them two as a back two will be quite good, I believe. Or actually, I lie. It's not. No, it is. I'm nearly sure it is. I'm thinking of a question that was put in here. I'm thinking of somebody else completely. Speaking of the questions, there's two here that I want to pose to both everybody here in the chat and to my two compatriots here, Chad and Race. The first one is about said centre back that plays for Southampton. Stephen, what about taking another player from Southampton, Armel Bella-Kotchap? I personally have not seen an awful lot of him play. I do know that he is quite solid in his defensive stats and everything like that, with his tackling, his ball play and whatnot. But the only thing that would worry me in relation to that, while he is a very good centre back, and I know this is kind of a knock on Lavia as well at the same time, they were the worst team in the league by far, and Lavia was the best player on that worst team in the league. And while that can be used to knock a player, it can also be used to lift one up. I personally don't think we're in for him. I think he's still very embedded into that Southampton squad. I don't think he's looking to leave. Somewhat similar to the Doucouré situation with Crystal Palace. They only recently got him. They have no need to sell him. And when the thought of it was even brought up, there was reports that Crystal Palace were asking for ridiculous money, like 80 million pounds. And it's their right to do so because realistically they don't have to sell him. But with the likes of Armel Bella-Kotchap, have you, Race or Chad, and I'll start with Chad first this time again, have you looked into him in any way, shape or form? Do you know much about him as a player? And if so, would you like to see him coming in to be an understudy to our two centre-back pairings as we are at the moment? Or do you think that the names that we're linked with at the moment, such as earlier in the window an Inacio and currently at the moment a Perr, do you think there's any credibility to any sort of a link there that we could have? Could there possibly be talks being going on? As Paul says here, they'll be cheap and we need somebody decent to take off the pressure for the main guys in the games. I agree with that, especially with the likes of Europa League. He'd be the kind of player that could come in and play with that, but so could the likes of an Inacio or a Perr. Just a couple of your thoughts on that, Chad, before we go on to Race for and I'll give our final thoughts then before we finish up. Do you think Bella-Kotchap is anyway sort of a player that we could have? Do you think Southampton are even close to selling him or even consider it?
No, I don't see him being a Liverpool player. I know Liverpool needs to use the season in the Europa League to help develop the team, help develop the players, because we have a competitive team at the moment. This is a perfect opportunity for Liverpool to bring in some young guys, give them the game time in the Europa League, help them, play against grown men, play against competitive players that want to attack Liverpool. So, everyone in the Europa League will want to beat Liverpool because it's Liverpool, and that will make the games more competitive. Even though we most probably will be more talented. The squad might be more talented, but I don't see him being a member of our squad. Unfortunately, like you were alluding to with the Southampton thing and Southampton knockers, Southampton had the worst defense, if I'm not wrong, last season. They conceded way too many goals. I know it's not all the blame must go down to one player, but at the same time, you're part of that defensive line, and unfortunately, it's not a I don't think that's a sign for us. I think if you want to go for the cheap option, there's 40 something mil for Ignacio, who has been proven to play in the Champions League and played well in the Champions League. His ability to play on the ball, he is a Liverpool player in the sense. And I don't want to bandwagon with you, Stephen, when it comes to Ignacio, but it's completely correct in saying that he would be a better option for us. Even I saw someone that just posted in the chat, like I was saying, Hyper, sorry, the guy from Bayer Leverkusen. He's young. He can play on the left. If you do play the inverted role, now you can jump into the centre backs and make it a nice transition. Same as Ignacio, even Silva as well. But yeah, no, I can't see us going for any Southampton players besides Lavia.
No, I think it's wishful thinking, unfortunately. And as well, why would Southampton sell us two players in the same window? It doesn't make financial sense for them or any common sense for them to begin with. Race I'm just after seeing here, came up on my phone just as we were chatting. David Ornstein tweeted about 10 minutes ago that Chelsea's fourth bid for Moises Caicedo has been turned down. It was a £75 million and £5 million in add-ons. Brighton don't want to sell despite the midfielder's wish to go. It's clear Todd Bowley and the boys down at Chelsea don't know who they're dealing with in Bloom and Brighton. They don't budge.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be a failed transfer window? Not a failed transfer window, but do you think this is something that we could look back on and think, why didn't we go in for that player when now we have the savings and the income from the likes of the two deals that have just gone out the door, one of which being presumably in Fabinho, and the savings of just under 50 million a year in salary? Do you think this is something that we will look back on in a couple of years' time and think we should have gone in for Kaisero when we had the opportunity and the funds there? Or is this a situation of FSG are going to FSG and we're going to miss out on a top signing again?
Well, to touch on the Brighton aspect of it, I mean, Brighton finished above Chelsea, so like they're the superior club right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. so Brighton's like, man, what are you guys doing here? Get out of here. Of course, they just sold us McAllister this year, and I didn't touch on too the dynamic of Brighton selling us two midfielders in the same window. How would that kind of look for them and as an organization? Like what's that kind of that'll be an interesting negotiations that would go on there. Because I'm trying to remember how this Kaisero saga began, because I think it was in January. We were interested. He had a strong World Cup, and that's when he really started to get that press and that we started to see the potential that he had. And then Chelsea, I think it was, their interest came, and then everyone just kind of backed off a little bit, and it looked like Chelsea to Caicedo is a done deal, or that was a very strong possibility. And then it kind of died down, and now it's back up again, and now Chelsea are bidding, and now, like you just mentioned, the 75 plus 5 million I'm seeing in add-ons. And so now Brighton are like, well, if you really wanted him early, you should have gotten him. You should have paid up. And now you're right. It seems like Brighton don't want to sell, but Kaisero, of course, has wanted to leave. So it's always tricky in those situations when the player wants to leave. I tend to think that eventually that this might be pushed on to January now, because you'll see how the teams shake out if Brighton are having a poor season or a good season with Kaisero and they want to keep him on. I think that's where it'll be a waiting game to play out. Because Kaisero, he's back, he's training with Brighton, and I think he's not holding out or anything like that. He's not I think he's with the team, so that there's no issues on that part. But I just kind of think back to the Coutinho saga with us, and it seemed like Coutinho was. I don't think there's any official bid or anything, but it was clear that he wanted to leave. He didn't leave until January, but he still played with us through that first portion of the season, and then eventually left. So I think this is a case with Kaisero of pushing for a January January move would be in the cards. On our part, it would definitely missing out on a target, but again, we kind of backed off because it seemed like Kaisero was just not interested. He wanted Chelsea and all of that. So when that's kind of reported, it's hard to kind of come back to and insert yourself in the conversation without getting into a pretty large bidding war, which I don't think we wanted to do. We knew that we needed multiple midfielders to come in this season. I don't think we wanted to risk getting priced out for just one midfielder. That's why we didn't go for Bellingham, because we wanted more players coming in. Obviously, in a best case scenario, we would love to splash the cash for Kaisero along with all the other players we got. And it seems like with Chelsea seemingly handling this transfer in a terrible way, it seems easy for another club who if they're willing to spend the money, would come in and just swoop it right underneath their feet, swoop the rug right from their feet. So I'm just gonna, I don't think that Kaisero is a candidate for us or a possibility. So I'm just gonna watch back and laugh at it and hope that they're not able to get him and wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's quite a funny thing. Sorry, Chad, go ahead.
Sorry, again. I think that Brighton's playing with Todd Bowley, knowing that he's a free spender and he can splash the cash. So I think Brighton, dangling the carrot in front of Chelsea, saying that you got to come get it. And I feel like they're going to jump up their price to maybe 100 more before they say yes. You don't know. Maybe Kaisero might have a back injury like Coutinho got at the beginning of the season before he got sold. So I do think Brighton will sell him to Chelsea. I think they're just waiting for the price more before they say, yeah, okay, you can take him. And that's just gonna be how Chelsea do their business now. Everyone knows that Todd Bowley is a free spender, so they're gonna make sure that they get as much as they can out of him. And that's what I feel like is gonna happen with Kaisero.
Yeah, I think so too. And I for the businessman that Todd Bowley makes himself out to be, while I give him credit for getting 125 million pounds for both Kai Havertz and Mason Mount, that's unbelievable business, first of all. But I think in selling players, he's great, but I don't think at buying players, he's all that great. They already seen that Chelsea paid 100 million plus for Enzo. They're not going to turn around, and they've seen Arsenal were willing to pay 105 million for Declan Rice. They're not going. Brighton aren't stupid. Brighton, it's not like a big club pushing around a little club here. Chelsea were in a relegation battle last season. I don't think many people realize that. Chelsea had a horrible season. And for them to try and push around Brighton, who finished in a European spot, mind you, and have money to spend and are about to get 100 million more for Kaisero, Brighton have all the cards in this. They don't have to sell unless Kaisero actively forces a sell. And I think in a couple of years' time, we could be looking back and this will be like, God, we could have jumped in there and taken something right out from Chelsea if we wanted them. But it remains to be seen. We're currently at just over an hour. Before we go, I do want to point out a stat that was pointed out to me today, and I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I put it in our little chat as well, that this is the first season since 1958-1959 when Liverpool do not pick anyone for playing who either had played for them with or under Kenny Dalglish or would go on to play for them under Kenny Dalglish. That is mind-blowing, that in the past 64 years that Kenny Dalglish has had a finger on something in Liverpool players. That bonkers to me.
It's a legend.
Oh, beyond belief. 1958, 64 years ago. That's nuts. Anyways, we leave you with that stat for this evening. Thank you so much for watching. There was over 100 people in here at the moment. There's still nearly 100 people in here, 85 in here at the moment. Please do leave a like and subscribe on the channel for us. It does really help us out an awful lot. From myself, from Race, from Chad, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time, 7:30. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.